Earlier in the week, the NBA released its schedule for the upcoming season, and of course, my eyes were on the Raptors games, and I actually found some really interesting details. So in today's video, I'm going to break down everything that Raptors fans need to know about their layout, from strength of schedule, number of rest days, and even distance traveled, because in a conference as competitive as the East is this season, these little details are going to make the biggest difference in the Raptors' push to exceed 50 wins this season. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Sports for a huge update on the Toronto Raptors season. And on this channel, I bring you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news at least 3 or 4 times a week. So if you like what you see from today's video, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and you can help us on a road to 12,000 subscribers. Also, if you find yourself enjoying this one along the way, be sure to drop a like to give that extra little bit of support to the brand and to the video. Let's try to get to 350 likes on this one. But today's video is all about the Toronto Raptors schedule and my reaction to the schedule, and I found some really interesting details that you guys need to know about this schedule heading into this season here. A lot of the times Raptors fans can feel a little bit disrespected by the NBA, and I think in most cases a lot of that can be justified here, but the NBA has really done us a bit of a service here with the schedule and why it can be a very big beneficial piece to the Raptors season in their pursuit of a solidified playoff position, in their pursuit of even exceeding the 48 wins they got last season and getting above 50 wins this season, because the East is going to be very competitive. Obviously, you got your top dogs in theory in the Celtics and the Bucks. The Sixers and the Heat are still very good teams. And then you've got what many people consider like this tier of teams with the Raptors, the Bulls, the Hawks, the Cavaliers, potentially the Brooklyn Nets, depending on what goes on with that, and maybe a couple other teams that are all vying for a solidified playoff position, that want to avoid the play-in tournament, which has made, that playoff race even more competitive. But this schedule might really push the Raptors onwards here, and let's go through all of the key details about this schedule that can actually help the Raptors. We're going to talk a lot about the strength of schedule and how that can help the Raptors. We're going to talk about if the Raptors are getting a good amount of rest for their games, and also distance travel, because that absolutely matters for the Raptors, because going through customs consistently to get into the US and back takes a toll on the players. So you're going to want to be sticking around to the end of the video to hear all about that. But let's first go into the first game of the season, how the Raptors are going to open the season, because last season, wow, that opener didn't really reflect how the season went. I remember we got absolutely dismantled by the Washington Wizards at home as well, I think, and I felt like we lost by 30 points. It definitely got up to a 30-point deficit. I think we ended up losing by like 10 to 20, but it was an ugly game against the Wizards. We definitely want to set the tone better this season, playing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. I really love the NBA constructing this narrative around Scottie Barnes and Evan Mobley, which is definitely what they're kind of going for here. Also, two teams who are fighting for that playoff position near the end of last season. And, mostly in particular, that Rookie of the Year race where Scottie Barnes is definitely going to feel like he deserved that Rookie of the Year award, wants to go prove it, and Evan Mobley is going to feel like he kind of got robbed of that award, and he's going to want to go prove that he is the better player. So great narrative there. It's going to be a fun game. Hopefully the Raptors get started off on the right foot. But going beyond that, let's get into the strength of schedule here. I have a lot of graphics for this one, and first of all, let's give a shout out to the person who created these graphs and graphics and posted them on Twitter. I don't really want to butcher the pronunciation of their @ but this is the user that I got all of this data from, so shout out to them for helping create this video. But let's get into the first one, talking again about the strength of schedule here. And the Raptors are on the easier side of the schedule, not by much here. You can see them over here, but they do have an easier schedule than most of the NBA, and the Raptors want to maintain a great amount of competitiveness all throughout the season. It is nice to see that they have one of the easier schedules in the NBA. It could be a lot easier, but then again, it could be a lot harder, and this should bode well for the Raptors, especially as we go into the next one here. We're discussing how the layout of that strength is kind of justified from quarter to quarter in the NBA. So the schedule was divided into 4 parts for this graph. It showcases how difficult each part of the schedule is for each specific team. The higher up the point, the easier the schedule is. So let's talk about the Raptors here. And as you can see from the graph, the season actually gets easier and easier for the first 3 quarters of the season. Then that final quarter is where there's really going to be some difficult games here. Now, this might seem like a negative thing because right when the Raptors are in this point where they really have to go and win games, the Raptors really have to go and take care of business to maybe solidify that playoff position, maybe make that push for an additional 1 or 2 seeds in the Eastern Conference, which could be huge for a potential first-round playoff matchup. But I kind of like it here. The Raptors start with the easier part of their schedule, and I feel like consistently over the last number of years, the Raptors have done a good job of consistently getting better and better as the season goes on, just improving their game. And as they start to gel a little bit more together, the core just gets better. And I think that is something that can happen with the Raptors this season. So I like the fact that we can get more settled into the season, get better and better. Maybe the easiest part of our schedule, pump up our tires a bit more before we know we go into that war in the last quarter of the season where we're getting the hardest portion of our schedule. And I think we're going to be the most equipped to take on that part because it is last in the season, knowing what is at stake and having all of that experience together throughout the season up until that point. So I kind of like the way that is laid out for the Raptors in this case scenario. But a lot of the strength of schedule here and the type of opposition you're playing, another big factor associated with that, especially if you are in that hard pocket of your season, is the amount of rest days that you are going to be having in the NBA. And for the Raptors here, again, we've gotten a great stroke of luck here from the NBA because the Raptors, in terms of rest, are one of the best in the league in terms of having more rest than their opposition. And also, I don't have the graphic for this, but the Raptors also have some of the least amount of games in the NBA where they have less rest than their opposition. So for much of this season, the Raptors are going to be well rested, especially above their opponent. And very rarely over the course of the season will they have that less amount of rest than their opposition. And these things 100% matter. You want to be more fresh than your opposition. It's just the nature of the scheduling here. Some teams are going to be fortunate. Some other teams near the bottom of this are going to be unfortunate. But overall, it's nice to see that the Raptors are going to be in a good position to take advantage of maybe those extra legs and the extra few minutes that each of those players are going to have on the court. And we can go even further into talking about the amount of back-to-backs that the Raptors are going to be facing this season. And another great situation for the Raptors. They are tied with the least amount of back-to-backs in the NBA. And that is just another great thing where they won't be suffering as much from those back-to-back games. That's probably something that's correlated with them having typically more rest than their opposition. And these are all great things for the Raptors here. And another thing that is part of those rests is the amount of distance traveled for the Raptors. You know, playing in Canada, the second most northern team in the NBA, because actually Portland Trail Blazers are technically more north than the Raptors, but the Raptors playing in Canada, a lot of travel can be associated with that. Obviously, you've got these kind of closer games like Philadelphia, New York, and Brooklyn, and all these things. But you know, when you're going down south, especially if you're going out west, there can be a lot of travel there. And for the Raptors, you really can't discount the toll it can take on the players and the additional travel time it can have going through customs, having to go over the border from Canada to US, going from the US to Canada, just going over their borders consistently, going through customs can really add on to your travel time. But as you can see with the graphic here, the Raptors have some of the least amount of distance traveled in the NBA, and it's great that the NBA is kind of recognizing the Raptors having that extra little bit of travel associated with them, and therefore getting maybe less of a strenuous travel schedule here, because this is another great thing for the Raptors. And like I was saying in the intro, it's going to be a very competitive Eastern Conference this season, so having maybe the slight edge a lot of the times is going to be the difference from maybe like a 6 seed all the way up to a 4 seed. Like, these little intricacies of the season have an impact. It may not be a big impact, but when the margins are so fine like they can be in the NBA this season, it can be a very big deal. And it's better to have these things on your side than to not have on your side. And the Raptors were, you know, some of the least amount of rest and one of the hardest schedules. And maybe I'd be here harping about how, you know, there's more disrespect from the NBA against the Raptors here. But it's nice to have this stroke of luck with the scheduling to have it be a lot more favorable. Like, you really can't ask for much better. An easier schedule than most of the NBA, I think that having the easier part of your schedule first is great for the Raptors in building up momentum and continuity between the group. They have some of the best amount of rest over their opposition in the league. They have the best in terms of amount of back-to-backs played, and also one of the least strenuous traveling schedules. So really, you can't ask for much better here, and the Raptors want to build off of last season's 48 wins, where it was supposed to be a transition year. Well, now we're in a season where we want to go out and win as many games as possible. We know exactly what we are. We want to be a playoff team. We want to go and win a playoff series, and the NBA has really set us up very well for success with the scheduling here. I'm even more excited about this season. It's only a couple of months away, less than a couple of months away, I think at this point, maybe just about 2 months. But all of these things are great. Let's go and win some games this season. So what do you guys make of the Raptors schedule? Do you think it's going to be a big factor in their push for 50+ wins? Or do you think that this doesn't really mean a lot? Let me hear your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, please be sure to drop a like. It does go a long way to supporting the channel. And make sure you are subscribed to Amateur Sports for more content like this 3 to 4 times a week. And in that content, I'm giving you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news. Be sure to check out our Discord to continue the conversation off of YouTube by checking the link in the description. And I'll see you again next time for another video.